Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Uh, Today's video, we're redoing the audio. Um, Thought I would try making a video without me talking and focus more on the work that's getting done. But unfortunately, I have the radio in the background, so I'm kind of hoping my recording here picks up at least some of the banging noises. I think you hear them. Uh, but hopefully we don't pick up the music in the background, although it was really good. We got a good country station out here. So you will miss out on some really good music. They play a lot of older stuff, but I enjoyed it. You'll have to find your own music. So today we're working on making a drift. Uh, we're just going to call it a hammer eye drift. It'll probably be more for top tools. I don't have any material for making a hammer at this point, and not really sure what I'm gonna, when I'm gonna start on a hammer. I want to make a hammer, but at this point, thinking some handled tools might be good. Make some top and bottom tools for some projects. Um, so pulled this chunk of steel from one of the local thrift shops. We have a pretty cool one here in town. Um, they sort of do a name your price deal. I don't know how they get their stuff, if it's a lot of donations or what, but pretty much you just gather up what you want, take it to the counter, make them an offer. If it's too far off, they'll let you know. But uh, you'll see some of the things I brought in here. I went there. There was a ton of stuff I wanted, and I ended up, having to cut back because I told them I didn't want to spend more than $10. So what you'll see in this video is this piece of steel here that we're working on, and which might be just under a foot, just under 12 inches to start with, and a 10-pound sledge. Um, when you see it here, I'll have already pulled the handle out of it. Now there, I'm showing you how that the end's very mushroomed. I kind of get it beat back in, but it I guess I should kind of work the end a little bit when you're flattening such a big bar. It is nice though, working with a bigger bar like this. It actually stays hot. Where I'm working with some little piece of rebar and it does not stay hot, and without a good amount of heat, it does not want to move. It becomes really, really bad, really quick if you don't have that heat in there. Not to mention, I burned plenty of rebar, so too hot's no good also. But having a 1 inch bar like that, it seemed like it was 1 inch. Maybe it was slightly under, slightly over, but it was right about 1 inch. When I found it, both ends were, had seen the end of a hammer quite a lot. You can see right there, it's mushroomed on the one end. The other end was also mushroomed. My original plan was to work the struck end, make the one end the struck end, and then spin it around and draw the taper and make the drift. And in the end, I was just like, well, what does it matter? Let's just try to get something done here. That glove that I'm using is leather on the outside and padded on the inside, but the heat is starting to come through it, and I'm holding it very loosely. And now I started dunking the end so that I'm not burning myself so badly. But eventually, it gets to be too much. It's only good while I'm working the very end here. Once I start working up the taper, it quickly gets too hot to hold on to. This looks like when I finally decided which side I'm gonna flatten. Um, I'm going mostly for a bit of an oval shape, uh, not not exactly. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's an oval shape. It's kind of flat on the long sides of the oval. Um, but the the eye of the the sledgehammer that I picked up is very elliptical. It's there's no flat on it on the edges. So I there we go, bringing it into the shot. I try to hold it up there so you can see that there's a bigger side and a smaller side, but it certainly doesn't come through. Uh, but I figured a 10-pound sledge, I'm never gonna make a 10-pound sledge. So if I use that as my uh, I don't know, we'll say swedge. Um, that was my thought when I picked it up. I found this bar, I found that thing. It had a maybe an 11-inch handle stuck in that hammer. I don't know if it was broke or if it was rehandled. It was no way it was gonna work. 3 or 4 swings and you would have had it off that handle anyway. So I did take it out. It had 4 or 5 screws in it to try to hold it together, but um, I thought it would make a good, um, you know, swedge or whatever you would want to call it, as a mold for this thing. Even though it's not 100% the size or the not 100% the shape that I wanted, it would still, kind of give me a clue because I've never done this. Um, Obviously, this isn't the best piece of steel to use since I don't really know what it is. It seemed more than mild steel. Um, so I'm hoping to get more than just 3 or 4 um, uses out of it. But in the end, it might turn out that it's just mild steel and it's, you know, not that good. Uh, but if it looked more like shaft material, and I've been trying to figure out exactly what shaft material is made out of. If it's, a medium grade steel, like a 1045 or something, uh, or if shaft steel is more of a mild steel that is just case hardened, which could be the possibility. When I was at the scrapyard, I found a couple pieces of shaft material. I had positive thoughts about it because I saw a keyway, carved into them. So I thought, well, that must be better than just mild steel. But I haven't been able to find anything online just yet, so we'll see. Uh, but this looks like it's starting to get too hot. I'm pretty sure I won't be holding it with my hand for too much longer here. I mostly just went with keeping the taper square until the end. It I started without a whole lot of plan and just kind of making it up as you go. Half of this, um, half the time is spent in the fire. So half of your time you do really get to think about what you're working on. But I'm sure planning is way ahead of the curve on that. So eventually I picked out which side was going to be the flat side and started smacking it out there. And then just trying to keep it in line. You can see how that got a little better on the end. I figured we'd end up cutting it off. Whatever fish lipping ended up at the end, I figured it was just going to get cut off anyway, or you know ground down. I don't have any tongs to hold something that's 1 inch. That's another go at making tongs is high on my list at this point. But I'm not sure what I need to make it out of. Maybe some of that 1 inch spring ish steel that I got. That might be good. We'll have to we'll have to see. But I do kind of want something. I want to make one of those bolt tongs with the loop to get around whatever you happen to have. Like this here, with it being mushroomed at the end, You kind of need to grab over top of it. If you didn't look ahead of time, this video is like almost 45 minutes long. So um, maybe I'll shut up at some points and not bother you. You can hear the tink tink tinks, I think, of the hammer, which I kind of like. Um, the personal preference in this household, if you ask Michelle, is less of the young yak 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 channel and more of the silent Swede. Um, I don't know if he's Swedish. I just call him that. His initials are T.A. Um, I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his first name. I'm not really a pronouncer of names. But he's got the awesome channel. Every once in a while he'll talk, but for the most part, you're watching him work. He writes things down so you can see. Now right here, what I'm showing is just the size of the eye. One side has a lot of give. I start with the bigger side, and it turns out it's kind of a moot point. Really, the smaller side is shaped a little better, um, and I'm not probably going to be needing something, an eye of this size anyway. So I'm not going to really work all the way out to that outside dimension. Uh, but yeah, just to promote, his first name starts with a T. His last name is Amin or something like that. Um, but even the wife will watch that channel because he doesn't talk, and you just hear the tink 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 of the hammer and him working, and makes great videos, and then he does the little pause, maybe while something's cooling, and it shows his garden or something in the outside. Uh, you know, very very comforting stuff to watch, and I kind of thought this would be my attempt at not jabbering for 45 minutes, but we failed because I had the radio on, so that's why the voiceover here. Uh, but so there, I put some screws in the side of my base and I hooked the tire chains onto it. So essentially, the far side is locked down, and the chains come over, and with their cross members, the little chain that goes between the two long chains. I thought it would be an easy way for me to put my foot into it and apply extra pressure if I need it to hold a piece down. But it's only good in the middle. This ends up being kind of a waste of time. One, the hammer doesn't move that much, the hammerhead, and being off to the side, I don't really get much pressure on it. Now, you see me working it here. At some point, when I was hammering through the head of the big sledge, a corner of my piece caught in the hardy hole and dug into it a little bit. It looks in the end, I kind of just hammer it back in, and it's what do they call that? A cold shut. Um, Now you can see where I'm pointing is 6 inches, so I have a long way to go, and we never do get there. I end up making this thing a little short, but I'm not too concerned about it. I'm assuming I'm gonna beat up on it quite a bit, and it's gonna need a future working. So if I was thinking, you know, I'm probably not gonna make it to the 6 inches anyway, but that allows me to forge another inch of it into the shape, you know, into the same shape that I'll have at the 5 inch mark. I'll have more shaft to work with, and then maybe I'll be a little better at it. I'll have some more of my tooling worked out, and or possibly this ends up being a total fail in the drifting process, and I won't like it. Um, Really, what besides the shape of the eye, I try to just be conscious of keeping it smooth. You know, if you're trying to drift this hole and you have a lump in your, you know, in your drift, it's really going to cause hangups and maybe misalignments a lot. You know, you start getting your tool pushed to one side or the other. And quite honestly, when it's in the hammer, um, I don't know if it's the sledge or what, but if I put it in one way, I would get a lean towards, you know, one end of the hammer, one end of the sledge, and if I put it in the other way, it would be pretty straight. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. In the end, I just eyeballed it and just tried to fine tune it that way. Uh, but I think we'll just shut up for a little while here. Um, I don't think it's gonna be too hard to figure out what I'm doing. Here I'm rounding some of the edges so I can get it into the hammerhead a little better. And when I put it that way on the anvil, one of the issues I have with the new anvil, and I'm gonna keep calling it an anvil, people. So, um, compared to the small one that I was using originally, I had that flattened out pretty well. That small one. Now this big one is more rounded. Uh, the the round is pushed to the far side of where I'm standing, and I don't have this thing flat. And it's gonna take a lot of grinding to get it that way, and I just haven't put that time in. So, like where I'm working now, you can see how much rounded it is almost by looking at the shadow. But over there where the hammerhead is, I've started flattening about 6 inches over there. It's not flat, but it's much closer. So when I'm trying to get something smoothed out and in line with itself, I'll generally take it to that end and run it lengthwise with the anvil in order to try to get it shaped. Because otherwise, I'm, you know, trying to shape it or flatten it with a fullering die on the bottom and a rounded hammer on top. Not not that good. Now I've cut out most of the sound of my vacuum cleaner over there that runs the air. I don't know why I left it in there, but you can see the thing's gotten way too hot to be holding with your hand. Maybe this is where I end up digging in the side because I had less feel of what's going on. The the hammerhead, sledgehammer, um, is very thin in the middle. Uh, you know, both the top and the bottom, whichever way you're holding it, is much wider than the center. It doesn't have a smooth transition from the smaller hole to the bigger hole. And that's why I started using the wider side first, because it would give me a longer transition to that thin part. Oh my goodness. What is this guy doing? I hate dropping stuff in the dirt. Fortunately, you can't hear me cursing there. But no, I don't think I cursed that time. But oh, I hate dropping stuff in the dirt, man. It just annoys me when I drop stuff in the dirt. Um, anyway, so yeah, the that hole that I'm using there, both ends transition into a smaller eye somewhere in the inside the hammer. Um, it's not a straight transition from the wide hole to the smaller hole through the hammer. But that's why I thought the longer, I would say longer taper from the bigger hole was what I wanted to use. But in the end, it doesn't, I don't need it to be this big. And I'm not sure if I'm going to find, you know, handles that are even big enough for an eye like that. I might have to make that myself. In the end, I think I kind of gauge it a little bit off the hammer I'm using, because that's a 3 pound hammer, and man, does that thing wear me out. Thank God you got to keep sticking it back in the fire, because you might see me, um, you know, running out of stamina on some of these, especially if I get a real good heat on it. I start switching it from one side to the other, and that's when I start noticing that it's got a little bit of lean. Um, and I feel like that lean is part of the hammer head, because I don't really have to straighten it out that much that I remember. And I'm rounding the corners off here, but I don't necessarily want to get that complete oval shape that that hammerhead has. I like a more flat oval than the full elliptical pattern that that thing has. Yeah, looks like I'm trying to figure out what's going on there. And then seeing the eye difference, there's quite a. My lighting is very bad. I try to give you guys some shots of what's going on, but my vision isn't that much better. Uh, I think I started the day with a little table lamp on to give me some extra light. And did someone get their hand hot? It looks like somebody got their hand hot pulling that out of the fire, and I didn't even want to grab the wrench because my glove was already on fire. Uh, it's amazing how that happens, right? So I doubt I'll be holding on to it with my hand anymore. Even just turning it in the fire, I just give it a little spin while it's in there. Yeah, I don't want to do that with the glove on. But yeah, having a direct light over top of my anvil is too much reflection. I'm really bad with shiny objects. You got to really. I used to have a really shiny set of wrenches for work, and once I got LASIK, I couldn't see the the sizes that was printed on the wrenches anymore because it was too shiny, and they didn't have a black coating in them or anything. It was just stamped in them. Really nice wrenches that I could no longer see. Thank God I only needed to use the standard ones, and they're pretty easy to tell just by looking. But so yeah, me and shiny don't work out too well. Looks like I got the ruler there. Look at that guy, still putting his hand in there. You think he would learn? Oh, he's got the wrench. Never mind. I say you could slap him if you want. Finding that I'm still short, and like I said, we never do get there. We get about 5, maybe 5.25 inches. I didn't notice it at the time, but you can really see how much the corners stick out. Um, Whatever my tappy tap process was there on chamfering the corners, you can see that they still stick out proud of the flat surfaces. And when I finish this up and hit it with the file, and you definitely notice that the corners There's the handle that came out of the head. I cut most of that out. It wasn't really that important because I'm not going to that size anyway. But yeah, once I filed this thing and got it smooth, you could really see that the corners stick out proud of everything else, and the rounded corners. But I'm thinking that's maybe not a bad thing. I'm not sure, because if it's lumpy to the outside, it's gonna hang up when it's drifting your hole. If I have a little bit of an inside, maybe that means it's not gonna move the metal. It's not going to drift, the metal wider. But the edges will still be pushing. I don't know. There wasn't a plan for that, but nah, my thought right now, not during any of this, is if you ever see a Japanese style um, chisel, a lot of times it will have um, a fullered um, center. Uh, I don't know what you would call it really, but if you look at the chisel and it's got 345 degrees or whatever they are, the front and the two sides, and then the back is the handle, and then you flip it over and you look at the big flat area. The center is kind of hollowed out a little bit, and it creates a less drag or whatever it is. And you know, I'm sure there's a few things that it works out to, but um, possibly it'll come in handy here when I finally use it. We still need to find the steel that's going to become the punch, uh, but I thought making the drift first would then allow me to make sure that I make my punch the right size. That I'm punching a hole that's big enough to start the drift, that kind of thing, because I don't really know what I'm doing. Um, Now that little blink right there puts us at 1 hour. My camera shuts off at 1 hour, but it does restart itself. So interesting. Apparently, it just has a file size limit. I'm using a pretty old camera, but to give you some kind of time frame here, uh, yeah, I've been at it for an hour, and we got like 27 minutes there on the numbers. So hey, at least I cut out half of it for you. Looks like I didn't really get a whole lot of heat here, and so I'm just kind of taking the opportunity to eyeball it a little bit better. Like I said, me and the bright light don't really work out that well. Also, without working the exact shape that the sledgehammer is, I don't stick almost at all. I think at one point I get a little sticky because I'm rounding it up and getting my oval shape pretty close at that point. In fact, I should have spent more time rounding the entire piece into that oval shape, because now that I think about it, it's only the last inch and a half or so of the taper, towards the thick side. I mean, um, it's only about that inch and a half that I really tried to get into the shape that I'm looking for, thinking that would be the end result. But if you make a smaller eye, you won't be going that far up the thing. So uh, maybe I should have shaped a little better down there, like where I'm working there. Hmm. Thoughts? I mean, I obviously do, you know, get it, but it's mostly square. I'm not sure I show the exact dimensions when we get to the end. I think I'm mostly looking at the length. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking when I finally get my sander grinder finished, things will come down in size. Because I thought about getting more of a taper towards the point, but it doesn't need it. Same with hardening it. I kind of totally even pass on thinking about hardening this thing because it's going to receive a lot of heat. In fact, that hammer, that sledgehammer, is already warmed up too much for me touching it. Like I'm no longer touching it with my bare hand. Even picking it up with the glove in the end, it's rather hot. And that's 10 pounds of metal that I'm not even working it exclusively in there. A lot of it I'm using it on the hammer or on the anvil and only going into it at different times. But it's still, it picks up a lot of heat. So you got to imagine when you have a, red slab of metal that's the shape of that sledgehammer right there, and I'm putting this piece in, the drift in, it's gonna get lots of heat. So, I guess the drift is really not something you need to think about heat treating. You just need a tougher steel. I would love if this was like a 4140, but I can't imagine it is. So we'll see how long it lasts. But this is me trying to work that end over there and get things straight. Um, I still got to do a lot of work on my, getting things finished from the anvil. I'm trying to show you those lips again because they're still there. But yeah, get a cleaner, nicer finish. I noticed things really got better when I started brushing everything and stopped hammering the the scale right back into the metal. You know, uh, I guess there's quite a few things you can do to get your piece looking a lot nicer right from the anvil. So it's just practices, that I got to turn into habits. But I do really look forward to using this and making myself a hammer. I'll be making a cross beam one day when I get this steel to make it, and not really sure. I mean, I suppose I'll make a mild steel hammer as my first try, or just some kind of top or bottom tool. A handled. I'm assuming handled top tool. That's what I'm thinking. Something to go with a fuller, a bottom fuller. I want to get some hardy tools made to fit there. If you've noticed, I don't think I mentioned it in a previous video. There's an extra square over there by the Hardy. Welded that on a couple days ago, and I planned to make the tool that was gonna go in there, and I decided to wait. I don't have the material I would prefer to make it out of. Oh, look, here you get a little runway showing how things are looking, trying to get it squared up. So my thought is that smaller hole over there, that smaller square, it easily fits a 5/8 piece of round stock. So I wanted to make two tools to go in there. One is a bolster plate, bolster something, and the other would be a bottom rivet plate. And what I'm thinking is I take a piece of a flat stock, um, that's maybe a little thicker than what I have right now. Get something that's a little more like close to half-inch size, and put you know a piece of round stock in the center of it to drop into that extra hole, and then make my bolster plate line up with the hardy hole. So I just put my holes in a circle around that center piece, and as you spin the bolster block, all those holes will line up over top of the hardy hole. Uh, because the hardy hole being 1 inch, and I mean, really the only thing I'm sticking holes in at this point are those small axe head pendants, but it's totally useless for that. I do have something that's sort of like a bolster block. I'm not sure what it is. Some kind of Craftsman thing. I have two of them. One has the sized holes, the standard sized holes, and it's smooth. One side is chamfered, as if you're going to drive it in there, and that would make a decent bolster block if it wasn't so small and rollable. It's kind of more of a square stock. And then the other one has threads in it, like if you were going to use it to thread pipe or something. Um, I'm not 100% sure about if it's just a thread chaser, maybe to kind of fix up some threads, or what. It's not really you know it doesn't look like it would be for threading a brand new piece of steel or something, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I've tried using it, but it doesn't it's not wide and flat. It's very it's not proportional for taking a hammer blow. But so yeah, I thought oh, here I got it spun around. Finally got a piece of an end that I can work with the tongs, and they actually worked out pretty well. They grabbed them corners not too badly. I didn't get any heat that first time, so right back in the fire really. So yeah, those hoping to make those two bottom tools in the near future. As soon as I find something, especially I want a thicker piece um, for the rivet block, uh, and the bolster block. I'm just thinking a thicker piece would just last longer and hold up to the abuse better. Uh, so that's what that little square guy is over there. I think I've seen this kind of design, like people that have anvils where the preacher hole is close to the hardy hole, where they'll make a plate like that spins, in the preacher hole and just lines up with the hardy hole. So seems like a good design to me. I don't do a lot of work on the struck end here. I thought I was gonna hexagon it. Hexagon 6, yeah. I thought I was gonna hexagon it. Quickly realized, that's probably not in my skill set at the moment. So I just kept banging it around and just kind of rounded it. I went to 4 and then just straight to rounding it. And there's a lot of I don't pound it down to far enough to get the fish lip effect, but it's obviously that it's the effect. It's got an indent. We'll see how badly it works out. It's I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's almost the opposite of what you want. The reason you pound it in here is so that what you hit is the center of the tool, and the energy transfer is kind of through the center of the tool. The same reason why it's a little easier to hit something with a rounded hammer than a flat hammer. So I suppose I kind of just made that not good. We'll say. I don't know if you can see the indent there, but We'll see how much it mushrooms out. If I gotta stick it in the fire one day, it won't be a big deal. Like I said, this isn't getting any kind of uh, hardening or tempering or really any work done to it in those regards. I can tell you though, taking a file to it, um, it it didn't feel like mild steel at all. Especially there in the center where I didn't do any work. Uh, I hit that a little bit with the file, and I got a lot of skating on it. Um, I don't know, like maybe if I knew what type of steel this was and I knew something about steel, um, this might be the kind of piece where I should have annealed it, did the work, and then went through a normalizing cycle and a hardening cycle, and this might have made good steel to create the punch out of instead of the drift. But like I said, I don't know what it is, so uh, if it turned out to be good metal, I'm hoping it'll take a working, it'll be a tough enough metal to take the heat and everything, and I'll just you know not quench it and not really do anything where I might screw it up worse than whatever I do here. And I think the big square spring steel that I have, uh, it's spring steel. Why not make punches and things like that? So um, I think I'll make the punch out of that. You can't see anything on this ruler, I'm assuming here, but I'll point out where the 6 inch mark is, and you can see just how short we came on it. I'm looking for one that gives you the most amount of visibility, but uh, pretty sure my finger is about where the 6 inch mark is. So you can see I come up probably an entire inch short of 6 inches. Yeah, there's me either cursing and saying "ah," or I'm indicating it's 5 inches. I'm pretty sure it's 5 inches. Yeah, it looks like I'm just trying to round it up a little here. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Am I doing anything or am I just swinging a hammer for no reason? And you can't really get much of a view out of it. I thought I'd try to, just terrible lighting all the way around my shop, so apologize for that. I think I get some. There we go. This is me. I filed it up, or yeah, hit it with the hand file, and you can see those low spots. That the dark is what was under where the file doesn't hit. So, um, but yeah, a good 4 inches of that, or 3.5 inches of that, is very square, and I'm not sure how that's going to work out punch wise. I probably should have rounded it a lot like that last inch and a half, where I'm thinking the eye will be formed. Yeah, won't know until we see. And I don't line it up very well here where you could even see how it comes out. I do drop it in here so you can kind of see. This is the bigger end, I believe. Uh, and I say 10 because it looks like there's a 10 pound 10 indicator there. But I think that was the bigger eye. Flip it over. Oh, maybe not. Maybe the other. This is the bigger side. No, it looks like. Hmm. All right, we'll let you guess. But you can see down the sides there. I think that's kind of what I show you here, that you can see down the sides. I'm not fully into that elliptical pattern because it's not really what I want anyway. So this is wrapping it up. Thanks for sticking around. There's my Happy New Bee suit for next year. $15 on the auction. Super excited.